When it comes to live action portrayals of superheroes, a lot of people get caught up on one alter ego of a character, then say, "I like the civilian or the hero identity, but not his other persona." And usually, this is referred to namely Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman, because I almost never hear this when talking about other characters like the Avengers, the X-Men, or any other Justice League member besides Batman and Superman. So I'll start with Spider-Man, since this topic kind of spawned from a small debate I had in a community post, and he's kind of the only Marvel character that this is kind of brought up mostly. So as we know, Peter Parker was a social outcast who was very passionate about science, and he was not someone who lived in an apartment complex, went to a high tech school for geniuses like himself, and has a lot of diverse friends. As we know, Peter is a photographer for the Daily Bugle and known for his pictures of Spider-Man, right? So some people kind of get the impression that Peter is still constantly nerdy and he still wears glasses like the movie version of Superman. And the thing is, he doesn't. Since kind of ever since he had gotten his powers, I think that this is the case because people kind of see the first quarter of Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker in school and think about the portion of when he kind of lost his powers inside Spider-Man 2 due to like psychological reasons. Then they kind of go, well, he was a perfect Peter Parker, but he was a horrible Spider-Man, or he was at least lacking, which, I mean, no, he was a good Spider-Man too. I mean, he was definitely cracking jokes on some of his enemies and stuff at some points. Even if the jokes were corny, I mean, it's Spider-Man, so yeah, but he was definitely cracking jokes on Green Goblin back when they were fighting in the burning building. He was cracking jokes on Dr. Octopus when they were fighting in the bank, and he was cracking jokes on Sandman when they fought in the armed truck and all that stuff. I mean, of course, he got more serious and he stopped the banter after after those scenes, but still. But anyways, but back on the subject of Peter Parker. So outside the mask, Peter isn't really like he's not nerdy after like he receives his powers or anything, and definitely after his graduation, especially taken to the fact that he was definitely picking up girls like Gwen Stacy, Felicia Hardy, or Mary Jane Watson, and many other girls who have fought over him, even like Liz Allen or Betty Brant. I'm just saying, like, yeah, Peter was definitely a huge chick magnet. But not to mention, he was also friends with like the cool kids and stuff, like his former school bully Flash Thompson, his billionaire friend Harry Osborn, or his supermodel girlfriends Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy back when he was in college. So no, Peter was definitely not no nerd or anything. Peter doesn't really do that whole clumsy routine unless he really has to change it to being Spider-Man or make up a reason to kind of not be around, which kind of some people kind of assume that he was just purposefully rude, like he was just walking out of nowhere, like walking out and being like, "Oh, great, Parker he just left, and like I have my problems and stuff, and Peter is just gonna ignore me like that." That was rude. Or they'll kind of see Peter as a coward and be like, "Parker, where were you when all the action was going down?" Sorry, I was in it, but I can't tell you that because I would be telling you my secret identity. But anyways, but yeah, but that's kind of usually how that typically goes. So for me, Andrew Garfield was the perfect actor to physically portray Peter, and people are kind of mostly stuck in the fact that like he was like he rides a skateboard and kind of assume he's just too cool, he's too emo, he's too edgy. But if you really go back to like the start of the Amazing Spider-Man, he was definitely stuttering a lot, or he kind of felt uncomfortable in his own skin. And it wasn't until like the end of the movie where he really like he and Gwen like when they broke up, where you kind of see that he's definitely like matured past all that stuff. The character development that he undergoes throughout the movie. And some would probably say that Peter Parker and Spider-Man act too much alike, which, I mean, that's always sort of been the case, like when you really think about it. I mean, like both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, they both crack jokes. They're both known to be high-tech geniuses, and they don't really hide it too, because like Spider-Man is known for like, oh, he's very intelligent because he utilizes it sometimes in his battles and stuff, and he's got his web shooters. Peter, he's also known to be very smart and interested in science and stuff, and he doesn't really typically hide it. And both are just about the same age, and they kind of hang around the same people. So I mean, the only difference is Peter can kind of get away with half the stuff that he does as Spider-Man because he's wearing a costume, meaning that he can kind of say or do whatever he wants, or pull all kinds of pranks on his boss, and he'll like still blame Spider-Man. He'd be like, "Spider-Man," but he won't. He could, but because he can't fire Peter because he doesn't know Peter did it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. So the only thing Peter does is like really hold back when he like his temper gets out of control. But other than that, he doesn't really want like somebody that, he doesn't want to be somebody that he's not though either. So yeah. But anyways, those are like the differences between Peter Parker when he's Peter Parker and Peter when he's Spider-Man. There's not really much of a difference as everybody's trying to make it seem like there is. Next up is Batman, where this logic does apply. In the DC Comics, Bruce Wayne is more of a public figure and has to wear a mask and has a lot to lose. As Batman, he's known for being brooding, stoic, reserved, and calculating in the presence of people that know his secret identity or involved in his hero career. As Bruce Wayne, he masquerades as a wealthy billionaire tycoon with too much money on his hands and sleeps with any women that he can desire. But I feel people kind of ignore Bruce's sincere side a lot, like in some of the Matt Reeves projects, like in the movie or the Cape Crusader, where he's openly a charitable person. He takes in a lot of troubled kids and kind of give them like the help that they kind of need or they never got or that he never got. His pride of the Wayne legacy or something that just gives him of something of substance like the hobbies or interests. And of course, Titans completely flanderized his character entirely. And to me, it's not really hard to really pull this off, where you need two actors just to play one character. That's pretty drastic in my opinion, unless stunt work is involved. And honestly, I want stuntmen and martial artists to get more recognition, since that's kind of more of a physical and more of a demanding job, if anything. So if anyone is kind of deserving of the role, it's kind of them. All they have to do is just really remember their lines and just emote. But that's really how I feel about Batman's portrayal. And finally, there's Superman, where this trope originates from, mainly from the old movies back in the 1970s, where the producers thought that superhero movies couldn't be taken seriously, so they kind of made a serious and mild-mannered character like Clark Kent into a bumbling, laughable guy. This also kind of created a weird love triangle between Lois Lane, Clark Kent, and Superman, which creates this narrative that Lois is supposed to like Clark for being a nice guy and not Superman for being the packaged deal, which kind of comes off as a bit emotionally manipulative if you were to ask me. Plus, nobody's really a fan of the will they, won't they kind of trope either, so I'm kind of glad Superman and Lois are kind of together, because that kind of gets old pretty fast from even me. But that aside, my point is that they kind of created this perception that Clark Kent's personality is cowardly, incompetent, and Superman is the bold and competent one, kind of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of situation, which was never the case. Because if you really go back to Superman, the animated series, or even Justice League action, Clark was definitely a sophisticated and a professional person, not some geeky, down on his luck kind of guy. He also used his journalism skills, much like Lois, to assist him in even his hero work, like expose corruption and stuff.
See, I've lived in Metropolis most of my life, and I can't figure out how some yokel from Smallville is suddenly getting every hot story in town.
Well, Lois, the truth is I'm actually Superman in disguise, and I only pretend to be a journalist in order to hear about disasters as they happen and then squeeze you out of the byline.
You're a sick man, Kent.
You asked.
So when people kind of go Henry Cavill's Superman, or his Clark Kent is just Superman with glasses, they're kind of incorrect, because even as Clark Kent, he takes himself seriously, because if he doesn't, he's going to just be a goober, and he's not going to gain that respect that he kind of wants, or doesn't carry his human side with no pride. Not to mention, if people are going off of like Man of Steel, that's a backstory to his young adulthood before he decides to become a reporter. And even outside of Henry, other actors like Tom Welling, who plays Clark during his teen years, where he was an athlete and he was a straight A student and stuff, is more accurate than the nerd gimmick pretty much that he puts on, which kind of made no sense why My Adventures Superman depicted him like this and wearing glasses when he has microscopic vision, even if his powers were kind of dormant even as a kid. But I digress. What I'm saying is, when people have this complaint that it kind of sounds like they're just, the audience themselves want to like believe that they're just two different people, although the purpose is we're following these characters' point of view, not the supportive characters. Now, if it was kind of a rare case like Bruce Banner or something, the Incredible Hulk, that can kind of apply. But this is usually referred to mainly Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man, because I've never heard people be like, Mark Grayson Invincible acts way too similar. And definitely, there's definitely moments like Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne being, a serious and philosophical kind of character, to turning on that playboy billionaire charm for a second. I think Christian Bale pulled off Batman pretty well. As Batman, he was still serious and posing. He even cracked a few one-liners here and there. The only thing that held him back, truthfully, was his voice, and him just trying to sound different from Bruce Wayne. Other than that, I mean, I think he did a good job, even in that Joker interrogation scene, where he was losing it and he was showing a good amount of rage and desperation when he was like interrogating the Joker and when he was riding the motorcycle and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty good. And then even as like Bruce Wayne, as like he's definitely like he could definitely turn on that like rich boy act and stuff where he's like pretending to be drunk inside Batman Begins to kind of get everybody to leave. He's like, you all are a bunch of two-faced suck ups and stuff like that, and because he wanted to get everybody out the mansion so they wouldn't get killed or be in the way with the League of Assassins and all that stuff and expose the secret identity and all that. You know what I'm saying? And then later on inside the Dark Knight, where he was saving his employee, the one that knew that he was Batman, because that he tried to blackmail him and Lucius, and was like, I know that he's Batman, and I want like $10 million every year for the rest of my life. And then Joker had put a hit out on him and stuff, and Bruce had kind of like he ran a traffic light to save him and everything, and he was like, yeah, he saved my life. I gotta keep it secret now. And then Gordon was like, wow, you're a hero, Mr. Wayne. And then Bruce was like, for making the light? I mean, he's like, for trying to make the light? He's like, wait, what? You weren't trying to save him? It's like, no. You think I need to go to a hospital? You don't watch the news, do you, Mr. Wayne? You know what I'm saying? So stuff like that, yeah, it kind of works in that regard. So I mean, I get it. But anyways, that's my take as to like the whole like, oh, the personality kind of thing or whatever, or this, that whole subject of, well, this character was a good this but not a good that. What my whole thing is like is that we're following these characters' perception, their point of view. So it's not like we, the audience, have to be deceived into believing that Batman and Bruce Wayne are two different people by the same actor. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Or the same goes with Spider-Man and Peter Parker and stuff. Do we have to really be deceived into believing that they're two different people? No, because we're following their journey. Same thing with Superman and Clark Kent. Do we have to believe that, oh, Clark Kent and Superman are two different people? No, we really don't. I'm just saying. Now, unless the movie was about a supporting character, and I think that depends on like maybe the filmography or whatever, where like, oh, okay, well, we see this one character in one scene, but we don't know, or we do know, but maybe like, not from this other character's perspective. They change it to this behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying those are some ideas of how you can play around with that, but these are just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Tell me down below.